Welcome to Code with Richard, and in this episode, I'm going to solve LeetCode problem number 27, remove element. Here is the problem definition copied from the LeetCode website. Given an array of nums and a value val, remove all instances of that value in place and return the new length. Do not allocate extra space for another array. You must do this by modifying the input array in place with big O1 of extra memory. The order of elements can be changed. It doesn't matter what you leave beyond the new length. So to clarify, what this third sentence means is we are going to be modifying this input nums, and it actually doesn't matter the order that we return it. The most important thing is that we calculate what the new length would be after removing the value that's given to us. Okay, so I'm also going to copy and paste an example. Over here, we have this input array 3223 and a value of 3. And our algorithm is going to, in place, remove the first 3, the last 3, and keep the two 2s, and the output is going to be 2. And so here is the method that we're going to implement. And the big thing to note here is that this is an in-place modification. So that's like the big challenge. And so when I first started this, I thought about using a for loop, but a for loop actually doesn't really make sense because we're doing it in place. It's hard to know what the upper bound of a for loop is because the length of nums is going to change as we remove items. So I decided to do a while loop for my solution. And we're going to iterate through this while we have elements left in our in nums. So I also gonna need an I. My I is gonna be my index into nums, and so my first case can be is if my index is greater or equal to my length in nums. So we'll check this in every iteration. It should never be greater, but once it's equal, I'm just going to break out of here. This just means that we hit the end of our nums. So this is our base case. So this is really why I decided to use the while loop instead of the for, because I think that the ending bound on a for is kind of weird, and this is a little bit more explicit. I'm also going to create another variable up on top, and I'm just going to call this my new length. This is the new length of nums, whatever it happens to be. I decided just to increment this as I went through instead of taking the length of nums at the very end. And I suppose that would work as well. And let's see. So if I is less than my length of nums, that means I have elements I can grab. So I'm going to grab my first one, or my current num. It actually doesn't have to be the first. Once I is greater than 0, it'll be a subsequent one, and I'll just say nums of I. I could just use nums of I here, but I figured that current num is a little bit more explicit and it's easier for me to keep track of while I'm doing this. And so now there's two cases, and so if my current num is equal to my val, actually let's remove this, then I want to remove it. And let's implement that after we put the else. The else is we are going to keep it. So remember, every time we encounter a number that's equal value, we're going to remove it. If it doesn't equal value, we just want to keep it in nums. So how do we remove it? Well, I'm just going to delete it. Oops, not nums. I'm going to delete nums of I. And that's really all I need to do. I delete it. I want to keep my index I the same, is because once I delete it, all of the elements in the list that are later than this are basically going to slide in, and I will reference the new value at index I. To keep it, what am I going to do here? Well, I'm not going to delete it. I'm going to increment my new length. So I'm explicitly saying, hey, I found a new number that I'm not deleting, so I'm just going to increment my length, and then I'm going to increment my I. Plus equals to 1. All right, and so once I'm done with this, I think that's all I need to do. I'm going to return my new length right here. All right, so I think this is pretty much everything that I need to do. Again, what am I doing here? I'm just going to create a loop. I'm going to loop through my nums until my index I is greater than or equal to my length. Once it's equal to my length, I know I'm past the end and I can just end out of this. If I'm not going to break out, I know that I can get a current number, which is whatever my nums is at index I, and then I can see if my current num is equal to my value. If it is, I'm going to remove it, in which I'm just going to delete it. If not, I'm going to keep it, and my num length, I'm going to increment it. Oh, excuse me, actually, it's my new length. So let's put this here. My new length, I'm going to explicitly say, hey, I found a new element, just increment this by 1, and increment my index as well. Let's see, I have a return here, and here we go. So let's also open up, I prepared some unit tests for this. So remove element test. So what this does is I have my input, my nums here. So this is the example that showed. This is the value that I'm going to remove, and this is the number of elements in the list. And let's go ahead and run this. Okay, we'll pull this over here, and we're going to go into oh, I'm already in here. So Python remove elements underscore test, and boom, here we go. And that's it. Yeah, that's my solution to the remove element LeetCode problem. Thank you for joining this episode of Code with Richard. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If not, hope to see you next time. Thanks. Bye.